I went to my first endocrinologist appointment at 16 years old, a year after having type 1 diabetes, now that I know.
Yeah.
And she even looked at me like, how long have you been doing this with no insulin?
You're 12. You need to start managing your diabetes most of the time. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean we're not going to be a part of it.
I think 12 is a great age to start that. Dating, I didn't date too much. I'm very awkward. I don't think people wanted to date me.
Hey, Palmr fam. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome back to another episode of The Urgent Low, where we talk about lifestyle and type 1 diabetes.
Here, we believe in embracing self-care through life's challenges. We are back with a new episode, and we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Jisel, and we are so excited to have her. She is part of the Touched by Type 1 team. You're on the board. You're a volunteer. You do a little bit of everything. And we've gotten to know her over the last year, and we love you, and we are so excited that you got to join us. We can't wait to dive in. First, give us a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Yay. I'm so excited to do this. Love Palmr as well. It's been a great year getting to know you guys, and everything you guys are doing in the community is absolutely incredible. A little bit about me. You're right. I'm a serial volunteer is what I like to call myself. I will say yes to anything in relation to advocacy and just empowerment around type 1 diabetes. 22 years into this, I was diagnosed in 2003. I was a sophomore in high school at 15 years old. Really awkward age.
Bless your heart.
Thanks. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is the year I get my permit. This is the year that maybe a boy says,
thrive.
oh, yeah. Oh, she's cute. That had never happened before. And then they're like, oh, type 1 diabetes, out of left field. What the heck is that? No one else in my family.
Yeah.
So what were we dealing with? And it was a complete 180 for me in my life at the time. And it's so crazy to see and think back to Jisel at 15 to Jisel now at 37, a mother of two, and just kind of see the evolution. Mm-hmm. And it's not been easy. It's been doable. It's not been easy. It's so true when people say through each season of life, you really kind of change and things are kind of attacked in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I can attest to that as well. So I know that going forward in the future, the goal is hopefully one day we can kind of yell there's a cure, but I don't know when that day will come. Until then, we're just fighting the good fight, right?
Yeah.
We're all in this together doing it. So
yeah. So share a little bit about your diagnosis story, because you were telling us a little bit about it before, and it's very interesting and fascinating.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different story than what I typically hear and what, is mostly expressed from other diagnosis stories. But at 15 years old, we were going in for our annual physicals for back to school. So my mom had taken us to the pediatrician, and for whatever reason, he was like, hey, have the kids had blood work done? And my mom was like, no, is that normal? Should we do that? And he was like, well, just check their, baseline of what they're doing. And she's like, okay, fine. So my brother and I go and have just basic blood work. He had ordered a glucose test to be part of that blood work. And a couple of days later, we had the call from the doctor. My brother's A-okay. And he's like, Jisel, her glucose is a little high. And mind you, just a little bit background. My mom, I'm from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico. My mom's from Puerto Rico. My dad is what you'd call Nuyorican.
Yeah.
So he knows English and Spanish. My mom doesn't know any English. So all of this is happening, and I'm always translating, during this whole season of this diagnosis story. And so the doctor calls, says, hey, Jisel's glucose is a bit high. And she's like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And? Yeah. and I'm just sitting there, and he's like, does diabetes run in the family? And my mom recalls diabetes as type 2 diabetes, elderly people in the family, grandparents. And she's like, oh, well, grandparents. He's like, okay. And I don't know what made him lean into it a little bit harder And he was like, well, let's do a 3-hour fasting test. And my mom, no idea what that is. She's like, okay. So we signed me up, dropped me off at the local Quest at the time, and was just like, all right, here's a book. I'll come back in 3 hours. She didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
So, and my parents love me and support me and have always supported me, but bless their heart, they didn't really know. So she drops me off and I'm like, okay, I'm a little 15-year-old sitting there and I'm with my book and do the 3-hour, every hour.
Is it the same test you get when you're pregnant? Is it
think
similar
so.
to
Yeah,
it?
you drink the orange juice and then it's like every hour on the hour they check your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Aw.
And I walk out of there.
Pregnant ladies and then Jisel.
Yeah.
Hanging out.
Yeah. Like, what am I doing? What was I even reading at the time? I don't remember. Gosh, maybe like a Harry Potter.
Yeah, I was just going to say Harry Potter.
I'm going to date myself here, guys. But do the 3-hour fasting test, and we get the call about 3 or 4 days later from the doctor saying, hey, Giselle's blood sugar just kept rising every hour on the hour. He's like, she's definitely, she has diabetes, but never indicated type 1. There was never a direct type 1 diabetic kind of diagnosis.
Yeah.
So we kind of managed it for the first year. They put me on glipizide and Avandia. I'll never forget this. And that was sophomore year of high school. Gained so much weight on that medication.
Yeah.
And didn't know what was happening in my body. And thankfully, by the grace of God, it was just that thick honeymoon stage for me where I wasn't having any crazy blood sugar episodes on either spectrum. I wasn't going crazy high and I wasn't plummeting down low because I was probably eating so much food. And then finally, after a year, someone approached me at an event actually that I was at, and they're like, you don't see an endocrinologist? And I'm like, what's an endocrinologist? And they're like, whoa.
This girl.
And long story short, I went to my first endocrinologist appointment at 16 years old, a year after having type 1 diabetes now that I know.
Yeah.
And she even looked at me like, how long have you been doing this with no insulin? And I was like, a year? And she's like, yeah, no. Do you know what an insulin pump is? I was like, no. Yeah. And that's really where my journey started. I was diagnosed, I think, at 15, but I didn't really start understanding what I had till I was probably 16 years old.
So you weren't doing injections, you were just taking pills.
Taking pills.
Wow. Crazy. So that must have been a 180
Crazy.
you had to do.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it changed everything.
100%. It went from my friends kind of it being something where I can just take a pill and manage it in my head. I really wasn't managing it.
Yeah.
To, okay, now I have a physical attribute on my body that can identify that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
In the thick of just the awkwardness that is high school to begin with.
Yeah.
And really kind of as a girl in high school, it's just all these layers of just things that I really didn't understand what to do with all of these emotions and feelings and insecurities at the time. And I was like, okay, how do I navigate this? And then add in the layer of not knowing absolutely anyone that was also struggling the same way I was. Isolating is the one word that I just have always used to kind of describe that time in my life.
Yeah. So were you open about it with friends or did you kind of keep it to yourself?
Oh, in the beginning, no. In the beginning, I felt like the pump was that scarlet letter that I wanted no one to know about.
Yeah.
I was like, oof. I was like, I couldn't get, anybody to, be like, oh yeah, Jisel, like, let's be friends. I was like, not now anymore, now this girl that has this thing hanging off of her hip all the time,
Making noises.
It was very, very few friends. And it's funny because I still remember them to this day. And I'm like, man, you guys are the true ones. You guys did not think that I was weird for this, even though it wasn't my fault. But yeah, no, it was really, it was tough. It wasn't till probably my college years that I started breaking out and was like, you know what? It is what it is. This is part of me. We shouldn't be ashamed of this. We're going to talk about it and we're going to advocate for it.
Yeah. So what was like the first round of equipment that you got on?
Oof. Oh, I think back to this a lot. Opening my first insulin pump, it was the Animus pump. It was the purple Animus pump where it was kind of transparent like the Game Boy.
Yes.
I'm aging myself.
I love it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We loved our Game Boys.
Yes.
Loved the Game Boy.
Love. They're coming
Loved.
back, by the way.
The where you can see all the little
BTW.
gadget
Yes.
things. Yes. That was like, man, we went to, side story. We went to Epic a couple weeks ago. We were
Yeah.
on Donkey Kong. I remember telling my husband, this is like the video game. It was so great.
So funny.
But I remember getting the first Animus pump and didn't really know what to expect. I had at that point I was on pens. I was taking insulin, but no medical device per se. We're not even talking CGMs yet. This is just a straight up pump.
Yeah.
I remember the box coming in. I remember specifically sitting in the living room, sitting on the couch, my mom on one side, my dad on the other side.
Oh.
Okay, we're not going to go there, but literally, it's like a core memory I won't forget.
Yeah.
And having the box in front of me, and I open it, and it was the first time since being diagnosed where I completely broke down. Because it was the realization that, like,
It's so real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure for your parents too.
well, that was another thing. I was like, I didn't realize how much guilt my father carries. And I think him seeing my breakdown and just like the helplessness behind it, as a parent, I understand this now.
Yeah.
You don't want, anything, to affect your child, and then health-wise, and then a health condition that from the looks of it, it's for life. There's no cure as of today, right? And I think that just absorbing that and feeling it and just understanding what was happening and him really seeing how it affected me emotionally, because that's one thing about me. I think that I've always, this is the hand I was dealt. I'm going to play it however I can play it.
Yeah.
And I'm very much so where I'm a person where I do, and I'm very type A and I'm organized and I will take action, but I don't let my emotions kind of live out the space that they need to live out. And I suppress. And this is another thing now in my 30s that I've learned. I'm like, Jisel, you suppress girl a little bit too much. You needed to let some of that out in the moment. So for him, I think seeing me just kind of break down a bit. And I specifically remember we opened it, I looked at it, broke down, we closed. It's like playing back. We closed the box and he's like, you don't have to do this if you don't want. Like he was just trying to take it away, knowing that we really couldn't, right?
Yeah.
That if it wasn't a pump, it was always going to be injections, right? And I came around, obviously. But there was always, in the beginning, just that sense of like shame where I stuffed that thing deep in my pocket. And if I was bolusing, it was in a very secrete way.
Yeah.
I didn't want people asking me about it. I didn't want to do it in a public way. I was tired of people constantly being like, what's that at that time? Like, are you still wearing a beeper? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, don't do this. So it was challenging, but I can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
Right. I think that.
Yeah, but that like at age, right? Like we talk about it with so many
hard.
people that like, is there really an age that's better than others that get diagnosed? And like all of them are different, but like I really do truly believe like around that age when you're 15, 16, becoming a teenager
Hormones,
might be the
everything.
worst possible time to get diagnosed.
Yeah.
Just because you're already going through such a challenging part of your life, trying to figure out how to navigate high school and it's learning to drive and friendships and relationships, and then literally throw type 1 diabetes on top of it. Like obviously my son got diagnosed so young, and both my kids really young, but he's now 12 and going into middle school and all that type of stuff, right? And I think about like what he's going through, but like he's been with his class for so long that everybody knows about it. It's not like he walks in, he's the weird kid. It's like everybody just knows him as Parker and with the pump, and that's what he does. And his friends are all cool about it.
And they get to be like his buddy to
Yeah.
go to the clinic. So that's why, like, when I hear like your story and stuff, and even the Shaw sisters, when they were talking about it, it's like, we didn't want anyone to know that we had an equipment. Like, we didn't want the teacher to like make a big deal that we had to go to the clinic and all that. And I'm like, and then I hear about like stories about Parker and Evie, and they're like chilling with their friend in the hallway because they're going to the nurse in the middle.
awesome.
And it's like, just the way they talk about it, I'm so happy that they have that sense of like confidence of like, yeah, this is what I have, but no one treats me differently.
Yes.
And even like Parker had, I think it was this year, school year, that a new girl came to the school and she has type 1. And I'm like, OMG, did you talk to her? I guess she was like a year older than Parker. And I'm like, did you
He's
talk?
in her grade.
Oh, it's in his grade?
Yeah, it's in his grade, yeah.
Did you talk to her? Did you say, hey, I'm a fellow T1D and all this stuff? He's like, no, I thought that'd be weird. And then Evie was like, I did. I said hi, and I told her that we all have type 1. I'm like, oh my God, so cute.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Gosh, I see that now, and I'm just like, that's how it always should have been.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, having a whole bunch of T1Ds running around, right? Like, we're trying to reverse it. But just not feeling out of place, not making people feel out of place. And I think that at that age too, I don't really blame, the kids around me. Like, they didn't know. Like, what do you don't know?
I definitely feel like nowadays, like, kids can express their feelings and stuff. Like, back in our day, it was like, hide everything. You don't have any problems. Like, keep it a secret. And that, like, stems from our parents, too. It's like what they knew to do. And it's like, you don't talk about this. Like, we're not going to go and call a family and be like, Jisel has type 1. Like, God forbid we do that and everyone finds out. So I definitely feel that, like, thank God that, our kid generation is, like, more like, we can talk about it. And, like, we even see how my nephews are with Parker and Evie. And it's like, they will eat anything known to mankind. And like the other day they were over and one of my oldest nephew comes out to me and he's like, Tata, can we have a milkshake with lunch? And I just give him this look and then he goes, never mind, because Parker and Evie are here, so we don't want to like increase it. I mean, they know it's like different times, and it's funny because he's like, but it's early enough. Because they know,
They've
like,
got time to burn that off.
Lunchtime is good, but don't you try to do anything after dinner because then none of us are sleeping.
Yeah. And that's been our general rule with it is like, if you're going to have some fun, do it early in your day so you can have time, because especially with ice cream, because it takes so long to kick in, right? Yeah. It's like, let's have it early so we can easily manage it. If you have it after dinner, nobody's sleeping.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's been our kind of mindset.
So with that early pump, because I don't know much about it, so did it just like, you just took it out and you could see how, like, what levels you were at and stuff? Because you said it didn't go to like CGM or anything like that.
No, so you couldn't. It was just...
Oh, so you didn't even know what you were? Like,
no, you were still checking your sugar.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what did the pump do? Just give yourself the...
It was just like your baseline delivery, and then you bolused for your meals. But you correlated that with the blood sugar check. That was our CGM. And then you learn to trust your body and understand, your body. But it was definitely a very... to me, feels today like a very blind experience, but it was the best thing because you didn't have to worry about a long-acting insulin paired with a short-acting insulin, and carrying the pen around and such. So
it kind of reminds me of. I mean, it's funny now, but my sister, when she had her first child, she got diagnosed with the gestational diabetes. And this was way before I knew Nick or anything about diabetes. Again, I related it to type 2 diabetes. Like, like grandparents had it, whatever. And I'm like, that's weird that you have it. Like, to her when she's pregnant. She's like, I know. Anyway, so she had to prick her finger, and she kept pricking the same finger. And at the time, we worked together, and we were in the same office, and I would go to the bathroom with her to do the pricking, and her finger was purple. And I'm like, Monica, we got 9 more fingers. Yeah. Like, we got to start using other fingers. And then now come full circle with, like, everything with Parker and Evie. She's just like...
Poor thing, though.
Yeah, it was a lot. I'm like, stop pricking the same finger.
Oh, gosh. And those, I found my, like, tried and true Lansing device now, but back in, like, no, I keep Stop saying back in the day, Jisel. But when I use the ones that I used to use before, those things cut deep, and it was tender.
Yeah.
Tender. So, and I remember I used to have all the calluses on my fingers.
Yes.
On my fingers, yeah.
With our kids,
Yeah.
they have what they like, and they don't want to branch out. And so for them, it's always the pump on the legs and the Dexcom on the arms. And they just, they rotate back and forth between each arm and each leg. Well, obviously, we're at the doctors, and they brought it before. It's like, hey, you got to start rotating more, right? Because because they're so small, there's only, like with the pump, and really I think there aren't, because the arms are even smaller, right? Yeah. We're trying to go up and down each arm, and we're changing it, but it's like you're still going back and forth. And they're like, you got to start changing and trying different places. And so our nurse, who's we absolutely love and a lot, and she's amazing, like she was really encouraging the kids to, hey, we got to start trying different spots, right? Like we got to try the butt, we got to try the stomach and all that. And she really helped encourage them, and they've done fantastic. They've been brave. Like they started doing it, especially Evie. It's funny.
Like,
Evie is like the brave one.
She is.
Good.
Like it's so funny because even like I got to get their blood work done. Evie's like, let's go. Parker's like, no, I'm not doing this. Freaking out. But yeah, like they're doing it, and for whatever reason, we've had the worst luck going any places.
Oh, really?
And we don't know what it is, especially the stomach. Like if we put the pump on the stomach, it's like not delivering insulin properly.
Really?
So then what Nurse Amanda was telling us was she thinks that when Nick is going to put it into her stomach, she's sucking in, and then it's ruining
the cannula is not going in properly.
It's getting damaged going in, and it's like getting bent, so it's not going in correctly.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, but it's been like all these times that Evie's like, oh, I want to try here, and like she's being so brave, and we do it, and then in the middle of the night we're having to change it because it's just not giving her any insulin.
Yeah.
So it's just like the ups and downs of that, like the scar tissue and all that, that like I never would have thought of. And it's like, it's so true. And like even Bella and her sister, when they were here, they were talking about like, there was a point of time that we wouldn't wear like a crop top because you could see our scar tissue. And it's like, that would literally be nothing I would think about before I entered into this life of type 1.
And I think what's so fascinating is how individual it is, right? Like we're all people living with type 1 diabetes, but nothing is like a straight line.
Yeah.
You can't, one thing that works for one person is completely opposite for the next person. Even siblings sometimes, like it's just so crazy to me how much individual kind of thought process goes into each person and absorption levels and how much fat you have in certain areas affects it. Like having a little fat isn't a bad thing as a type 1 diabetic, It's just all these little layers of things that the average person just wouldn't think about because they don't have to, right? Yeah. And I think that's also something that goes big, like highly missed in, the community is when you think of type 1 diabetes, it's a condition that requires so many more additional decisions and thoughts and just exhaustion on the body and the mind and the brain, and then introduce that into the different seasons of life. Like as kids, it seems like, okay, like I've got my backup. I've got parents, right, doing this for me. And you're trying to give them some independence here. And, you got to do this on your own eventually. Yeah. And then, you've got those college years where you're just like, freedom. Like, I want to party with my friends. I want to have a good time, as you should, live life. But you can't really escape the fact that this is 24/7 on your mind, on your back, following you. And then, go into career and marriage and parenthood and all that lovely season of life. And now you're worried about kids, your job, and the 50 other decisions about your type 1 diabetes. It doesn't go away, guys. No. It's crazy.
No.
Yeah.
So I always find that fascinating. And then when I sit side by side with people, even my own like peers, I touch by type 1 and I'm like, we're so different when it comes to that. Like I do not prefer that at all.
Yeah.
And I always find it, even 22 years in, I find it crazy that that's something that, still is real. Yeah.
So talk to us about, because you mentioned you're a mom, so talk to us about like dating with type 1 and then eventually going into having kids and how that all went about.
Eventually having kids. No, just kidding. Yeah. So dating, I didn't date too much. I'm very awkward. I don't think people wanted to date me. I've always been a rule follower.
Yeah.
Very like, yeah, no, my dad said 11. I got to be home by 11.
That's
like,
a Hispanic in you. I'm like that too. I'm like,
it's the fear, right? It's that cultural kind of like.
They instill the fear in you.
Yes.
And I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I'm like, kids nowadays, they say whatever they want to say. My dad just had to give me a look, and I knew that it was a bad decision that I just said what I said. And like nowadays, they're like, and I'm like, oh my God, like we need to instill this fear.
Yes, there needs to be a little bit of that. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree because I was very much, and then I do have a little. I'm okay. I'm gonna admit this. There's a little bit of regret there. I'm like, dang, Jisel, you should have just gone for it. Like you should just, just done a little things that were like not rule following, but. I didn't date too much. I had a couple like serious relationships that I would call like in high school, and I had one rejection because of my type 1.
Really?
That was awkward. Yeah, now I'm thinking back. Yeah, let's spill the tea. Yeah. I think he was just weirded out by it. I don't blame him, but it was the first time that I had openly, I guess, been rejected for like.
So was it like early on when you first met him?
It was totally early on. Okay. There was like no feelings, I guess, involved or anything like that. But I can tell that he felt probably a little uncomfortable or awkward.
Did he just like ghost you then? Or did he tell you like?
No, he didn't tell me.
Oh,
he didn't tell
coward.
me. Yeah, it's okay. But it was very much so like I was very vocal at the time already about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I wear an insulin pump. I'm diabetic, and he's just like didn't say much about it. He like looked at it, and I'm like, I'll put this back in my pocket. And then that fizzled out. That didn't really go very far, but that's okay. Met my husband. While I, at a working event, I was at a fundraising event for work. He was at happy hour. We won't talk about that. But it was so different with him because I always say this, with my husband, it's always felt like we're just kind of in tune. Mm-hmm. But he's very independent. I'm very independent. It's kind of like we can go to a party together and we're completely okay with like you being on that side of the room, I'm over here, and we're good. Like we don't need to be glued together. Mm-hmm. And that's great for me because I'm not a suffocating person and I can't be suffocated. What did I say?
Whoa, I'm getting
we work together, we live together, and he still wants to call me on the ride home in the car, and I'm like, this is my podcast time that I listen to a podcast.
That's sweet though.
Yeah, so sweet.
That's sweet. But with him, it was that feeling of just when I told him about it, and it was first date. I made it a rule for myself where I was like, listen, this information is coming out first date.
You have to.
Because I ain't wasting my time. And and I was like, listen, I'm a type 1 diabetic. And I had like my elevator speech for this, right? Because I was like, listen, we're just going to cut to the chase. If it don't work for you, it don't work for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed at this age. I wear this insulin pump. Was still not wearing a CGM at the time. And I was like, I manage it pretty well. I look like I'm fine. Some days suck. Some days are great. And he was like, all right, cool. Like, how can I help you? Like, his first reaction was like,
I love that.
Teach me more about it. And I was like, oh, mom and dad are going to like you. I was like,
he's a winner.
I was like, finally. Yeah. So it was nothing. It wasn't ever a big deal for him.
Yeah.
And he's always been very supportive, very in tune with what my needs are, depending on how I'm doing that day. And has always given me the freedom to kind of live life in the way that I need to like live it to make myself more successful, right? And not only like mentally, health-wise, career-wise, But he's always been like, well, what do you need? Right. And I think we've always respected each other in that way, because to the same degree, I felt like I've owed it to him. Like, well, what do you need? Like, what are you looking out of life? Because it's such a big thing to me that he just leaned in without questioning it, without kind of trying to dodge it. Like, oh, that's your own thing.
Yeah.
But never overstepping. Right. There's always been that boundary and I'm very clear. I'm like, hey, I know you're concerned, or maybe you're really curious right now, but I kind of need space to kind of work through my issue. And then I'll fill you in. Like, I know you're coming from a good place, but I've got this.
Do you share your numbers with him? Like on the app? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So for work, I travel sometimes, and that's always been something. I'm like, hey, I'm staying in this hotel. I'm in this hotel room. This is my room number. And he's got my numbers. So it's always been kind of like a conversation we had early on. And he's like, if either one of us is traveling, we share the numbers. So, God forbid something happens.
Yeah.
We know where that other person is, and we can help from wherever we're at.
Yeah.
So that's always been kind of like a thing that a safety net that we have in place.
Good.
Thankfully, nothing's ever happened where we've needed to use it, but he has access. My dad, though, we took the access away. That man cannot have access to my numbers.
So he probably felt like he should have taken it away. It probably never introduced it to me because I was like, all right. I was like, you're giving me a challenge. Here we go. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be the first one that comes up with the cure because no one's done any of this stuff. And I'm just going to make it perfect numbers. OMG. Like, still till this day, like we were just talking about it yesterday, like I've slept so bad this week. Aww. And he's like, what's going on? Like, like, why are you not sleeping well? And it's like, it's this subconscious thing that even though I know you've been doing this way before I even entered the picture, I still think he's going to sleep through a low, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And my brain needs to be like, and by the way, we didn't even talk about this, you hitting Larry's bone in the middle of the night.
Yes.
So our dog, I guess brought in a bone into our room, and then there was Parker had a low last night, so he went to treat it, and I guess he accidentally kicked the bone, and the bone hit the wall, and it woke.
Go right across the floor, hits the wall, makes a loud noise. Because he drops the bone right in the path, and of course it's dark. I'm getting out of the bed, I'm half asleep, you're not seeing anything, and then you just kick the bone.
Yeah. So then I pop up, and he goes, sorry, and I'm like,
what did you do?
Yeah. But yeah, I get that. With your dad, I should probably not have access to it. It's bad. It's rough. We went through so many stages of our relationship where it was can you handle this? Because it's it overruled me. It just became this obsessive OCD thing of oh my God, we need to know at all times what their numbers is. I'm always checking the app, and it's what in the, still I find myself even when we don't have the kids on our off week, I'll still click on the app, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
They're nowhere to be found near me.
Yeah.
I think that's also not talked enough about, right? It's just how caregivers are affected mentally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The load on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And you almost don't know how to explain it.
Right.
Because for me, I was I'm very much a go-getter, have always worked really hard. And then when I entered this relationship, it took me over, and it was I became this person that really needed her sleep and undisturbed sleep. And if I didn't get it, I was a mess the next day. And I and I still deal with it. And I still have this perception of oh my God, he thinks I'm lazy or whatever. But it's actually I'm dealing with such a different lifestyle, and I guess I didn't know how much sleep mattered for me because I always used to get it. You know what I mean? But now that I don't get it, it really affects me in every single way in my body. And it's I can't function. And it doesn't mean that you're lazy or you're not, or you can't, you know what I mean? It's just you have to really hone into those feelings and not let it get to you in the fact of oh, you're lazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just know that Rebecca needs more sleep than I do. Mm-hmm. And that's fine, right? And knowing our situation, I love the fact she's in my life. She's doing all this stuff, but she's going to need more sleep than I do.
Yeah.
And so especially on those nights that we are, because let's be real, alarms go off, I'm the one that's getting up. It doesn't mean it doesn't wake her up, right?
Sure, yeah.
She knows, she's well aware. Even if we didn't have the alarms. I need to get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I wake up.
She knows.
I wake up.
Like, she wakes up, right? She,
Like, where are you going?
Yeah.
Wow.
And for me, doing it for 10 years, like, I can fall back to sleep most of the time a lot easier. I'm used to operating on less sleep than the normal person. But I just know that, all right, Rebecca needs more sleep than I do. And that is completely okay. And so I will be the one to get up in the morning and get the kids ready. And yes, some days she gets up and still helps. And I love it when she does. But it's
Really, like I'm a little like hair and makeup for Evie.
Yeah.
So I'll come in every once in a while,
that.
do hair in the mornings.
yeah. But if she needs to sleep an extra hour, I'm like, no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
But
at
it
the end
would
of the day.
definitely was a big deal, especially for me at the beginning of our relationship. I'm like, I swear I'm not a lazy. Like, I've always worked so hard in my life. My parents are immigrants into this country. Like
justify it.
Yeah. And it's like, what am I doing? Like, obviously, I mean, now he's my husband, but it's like, he knows who I am to the core.
Yeah.
And then also, it's like, giving yourself that credit too of being a caregiver, it's not easy. And like you mentioned before, like your life is still happening along with the diabetes and everything. So it's like you really don't have to explain it to anyone. If they get it, they get it great. If not, then it's not your job to like explain why you're having to sleep an extra hour this morning.
Let's put it this way. You don't have time to explain, to add that to your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Michelle told us, she said it greatly. She's like, having like kids with type 1 diabetes, you never get out of the newborn stage with like sleep.
Yes.
And I'm like,
great
OMG.
way.
And I've never gone through the newborn stage, but I'm like, I bet this is what it's
Yes.
like. Because it's just, you're like, I'm never in a deep sleep. Like the REM, because I wear the Aura ring.
Yeah. Same.
I'm never in the REM. Like maybe like few minutes.
Really?
20 minutes top. Everything of mine is light sleep and then mostly all awake.
What?
Yeah.
It's so bad. Like I show him my graph and he's like, oh my God, you were awake for like 3 hours last night. And I'm like,
Really?
Like it'll be days like where we are, like she'll be in bed for 10 hours and the ring will say you were in bed for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And then the sleep score is like 40%.
No, really?
And you're like, how is it possible that someone was in bed for 10 hours and have such a bad sleep score?
No.
Yeah, I still feel like my body's getting used to it. Even after all, I mean, it's going to be, what, 3 years? Like,
Yeah.
That-
4 years. Yeah.
Oh,
That we've
Rebecca,
been,
we
like-
need to
Yeah,
like
it's 3
up
years, yeah.
your nighttime routine and be like,
sometimes I
D&D.
feel like I need to book a hotel room with blackout curtains with nobody around me and just shut everything off and sleep. But still then I'd be texting him like, hey, Parker's going low. Do you got it? That's literally, I'm so annoying. I know, I'm sorry, I'm so annoying. But like, he's like, yep, got it. Like yesterday I was out with my mom and I'm like, OMG, Evie's tanking. Do you have it? And it's like, yes, I have
Got it.
I'm like, okay.
that's so, but it's so fascinating because as a type 1, it's exhausting. But then I hear and talk to caregivers.
Yeah.
And it sounds some days even more exhausting.
Yeah, and that's the debate. Like, we
Yeah.
talk to people like Michelle, for example, and we've had that debate. It's like, and obviously we don't have it, so, we can't really live in your shoes necessarily, but like we talk about it, it's like, all right, which one is worse?
Yeah.
Is it actually having it or being the caregiver to one with it, right? And it's so exhausting at the end of the day. And obviously, like, that has honestly become the theme of Palmr because of that, right?
Yeah.
It's like why we talk about resort wear and going self-care and going on trips and taking care of yourself and learning to relax because we're honestly having to preach to ourselves most of the time because it's so hard.
Yeah.
And we want to tell the world and other caregivers like, we get you. We see you. We understand because it is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as a caregiver too, you like overcompensate because you're like, oh, my child has type 1 diabetes and I like need to go even further to make their life as most normal as it can be and like all this stuff. And it's like, oh, and then versus like an individual, you're like, you choose if you want to tell people or not. And like, like whatever, like, this guy ghosted me after one day, like whatever, you move on. But like, I feel like when Evie gets to the age she's dating and she'll tell me that, like, I will be like, OMG, that broke my heart.
Yeah.
I'm going to find this man.
Yeah. 100%. Because I feel the same way as a mom. I'm just like, wait, they said what to you?
Yeah.
So I get it from that angle. But like, I even myself see caregivers and I'm just like, that looks so exhausting, right? Through the night when they're younger, through the night blood sugar checks and just the constant monitoring and the constant chasing behind them. And I sometimes struggle with sharing this about my adolescence is my parents, not because they didn't love me, I genuinely feel it's because they didn't understand. And there was that language gap between, immediately at home. They had zero, this is going to sound crazy, zero input on my diabetes management. Didn't probably know how to like dose me.
Well, I think they were scared too.
Yeah.
Because we hear that a lot.
Yes.
Of, like, we don't even know what to do. Like, yeah.
So it felt like a boulder on my shoulders because I felt like, just like my grades, I need to prove that I'm doing well with my diabetes so that they know that I've got this.
Yeah.
Right. And then now as an adult and going to all these conferences and events and seeing the caregivers and the parents, and I'm just like, oh, you guys do all that for them?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my parents didn't do that for me.
Yeah.
In a way, I struggled I'm not going to lie, I struggled for a little bit like, dang, did y'all not like love me?
Yeah.
But it wasn't that.
That's true.
It's just like they didn't know what the heck to do.
No.
Yeah.
And the resources that we have today were
It was night and day.
No, yeah. Night and day. They didn't have that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's helped me in my independence, but that's another layer for the caregiver that I just now, thinking through it is you guys spend years of your life just doing it all, night and day. And how do you slowly loosen the reins on that when they get older? That's a whole season of...
I might you just take it off for me then. Because I even talk to them like when they go to college and they start drinking and they start partying. It's like, I'm going to be the crazy one at 1 a.m. watching the graph like, Evie's drinking tonight. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But like Michelle, or no, it wasn't Michelle. It was one of her daughters was talking about it that, she had to have like a real moment with Michelle about, I will allow you to stay on my Dexcom, but here are the boundaries.
Yes.
Like, right? Like, this is when you're allowed to contact me about it. But outside of that, you're not.
Yeah.
You can't judge me.
She's like, if I've been high for a few hours, like, you can't be reaching out to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm like urgent low in the middle of the night, yes, like start reaching out to me. And it's like, wow, that's so true. Like, I feel, well, definitely for me, they're going to be like, they call me back, you're crazy. Like, don't have access to my app anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so true because also it's like, as a caregiver, you're like, hey, do you got this? Like, hey, what did you eat? Like, you shouldn't have eaten that. Like, and I can't imagine like saying that to an adult. They're going to be like, no, like, leave me alone,
Absolutely. And I think that's challenging in itself, right? And it's not something that I've ever had to like live through, but I can't imagine just mentally having to switch gears and be like, okay, they're, about to be 18 or they're, like I need to kind of like take a step back and let them handle it.
Yeah.
And that apprehension for the T1D, like, am I prepared enough? Do I know how to handle this? Do I've got this? Like, do I need to make sure that, I know what to do? And I think that's where the swap and roles really kind of, you see all the effort of the years accumulate and how they've absorbed that and they know now. And it's a beautiful thing to witness, a little bittersweet for some people, challenging to say the least, but fascinating because I'm just like, dude, you get so used to doing things a certain way. And it's like, all right, now all of a sudden they crave independence. They know it all, right?
Yeah.
At that age, we're like, nothing can happen to us. We know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, as a parent now, how do I just kind of take 3 steps back and say, okay, show me what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and trying to learn even without type 1, right? Like you're trying to, with my son going into middle school, be like, all right, I have to trust you. Who you hang out with, what you do, your actions. And that was a conversation I had with him this last week. And even like the language he uses, right? Because I'm like, you're going to be in 7th grade. And it's a little bit different because how his school's set up. He's technically in middle school starting 6, but 6th grade was still at the lower campus.
Okay.
So now he's at the upper campus with the high schoolers too. And I was like, there's going to be a big difference. I remember me going into 6th grade and the jump, right? And what you're open to and all these things. And trying to have those real conversations so like he knows about it. And I'm like, this is where you have to start making these good choices.
Right.
Even like the words you use and how you talk and all this type of stuff. And, your friends are all going to be cussing and all this type of stuff. And listen, I don't necessarily want you cussing, but I'm not going to be around you. I can't hear you, what you're doing.
Right.
Am I going to be upset if I hear you cuss? I'm like, oh, sure, I am. But I'm not going to be there 24/7. And it was funny because I kind of had this whole thing. He was like, well, what words? Because like some people consider this a cuss word and some people consider this. I go, Parker, ask you this question. Can I walk up to my teacher and say that word?
Oh.
And if the answer is, yeah, if I say that word to my teacher, I'm probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
That tells you your answer.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, yeah, I like that. It's like, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you decide what words you use based off of what you feel like comfortable talking to your teacher about. But like, it's that whole trusting, right? Put the whole T1D side. How can you trust our kids? Because, we had this debate even, like, Parker's 12, will be 13 this year. Like, in 2.5 years, he's going to get his learner's permit and start driving. And then another year, could drive on his own. It's like, how can you trust him to go out there? And part of it is like, well, we're also judging him off a 12-year-old, but doesn't mean.
Are we going to let Evie, like, drive in the car with him?
Yeah.
And then, because I'm crazy, but this is how my brain works, right? And he's like, I literally don't have the mental capacity to think about that now when he's 12. And I'm like, but let's think about it.
Yeah.
Let's plan it out.
Yeah.
Let me get a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's get this laying flat now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can't, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to have to make that decision when the time comes based off of his maturity and all of that, right? Like, he has to be able to prove it to us if he's going to have a car and he's going to be able to drive and what he's going to be able to do, right? Yeah. And either he makes good choices and he gains our trust, or he makes bad choices and we can't trust him.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But we have to start that process now at 12. So it's not a like, oh, we're going to start at 16, right? When he's in that situation. And our big theme this year with him going, because he wants to play soccer and all this stuff, is like, all right, you're 12. You need to start managing your diabetes most of the time. That doesn't mean we're not going to be a part of it. Not saying that we're not going to have an eye on it.
Right.
But you need to be keeping an eye on your blood sugar.
Yeah.
You need to know, hey, I'm starting to go low. I should probably have a snack or something and bounce myself out before I tank. Or, I'm kind of going up. Maybe I need to give myself a correction, right?
Right.
He needs to start looking at that himself instead of relying on us.
Yeah.
And that we become the backup to him. And that's going to be our big challenge and theme for this year. And,
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
You don't like that?
No, I do like it.
you
But,
know.
like, if there's anything, I'm not going to be like, hey, have you seen Parker?
Yeah.
That's hard.
Just so hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
But I think that's so good. I think 12 is a great age to start that. But I also sympathize with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, how?
Yeah.
How do you disconnect? And I find that I speak to so many caregivers, and that is such a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's also so necessary for Parker, right? To be like, I've got this, you know?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Like baby bird flying away.
Yes. Like, what's the movie? The Robot, or have you guys seen it?
No.
Oh my gosh.
That's good.
You'll cry.
Oh, man.
Yes. But it's all about the independence and the empowerment. And it's what we preach, right?
Yeah.
It's the whole advocacy point of this is just like making sure that you have all the tools in your toolbox to say, I've got this, you know, you guys did great, give us credit, but I've got this and I'm confident and I know how to handle it and I know what to do. And I know that you guys are so supportive that if I am stuck in a rut, you guys are the first people I'm going to call. And I think that is the most successful thing you can do as a parent.
Yes.
It's just knowing that them always knowing that you are their safety net, right?
Yeah.
But you've done everything in your power to set them up for success. And I think it's such a cool thing. I go to these conferences and I've been going for over 10 years and I've seen the kids grow up. And I've seen the evolution of like the parents now come up and they're like, oh, they're out with their friends. And I'm like, are you enjoying the conference now? And they're like, yeah, I remember when, they were like following me. I'm like, but isn't it beautiful? Like, isn't this the point, right? Like, you carried them all the way through, and now you're with other parents that are experiencing the same thing. And the kids have this independence that felt impossible in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure in the beginning it feels impossible. Like, how are we ever going to break free from this? And seeing it happen in real life, I'm just like, oh gosh, like it makes me cry for them, because I'm like, that is the whole entire point. Like all the discussions and all the learning and the hurdles and the ups and downs, it's like, it cultivates into that.
Well, we're getting close to the end, so I would love to hear from you with everything that you've, learned, living life, getting diagnosed at 15, even moving up to, dating, becoming a mom. Like, what advice would you give, especially, let's say, like a young girl who was, in that middle school, high school range, who got diagnosed? What advice would you really give her as she, like, navigates life and kind of moves up into, to college and a career, becoming a mom and all that?
Oof.
So good.
Such a good question. And I think there's so many layers to that.
I know.
I've learned in the last, in my 30s, I really walked through a season of heavy, just kind of like mental health battles, I'll be honest, especially after my second pregnancy. That really did a number on me. And I realized, as I had mentioned earlier when we were talking, is that I had a lot of suppressed emotions, things that I was probably bothered or resented or angry about because I never knew to deal with them in the moment. And a lot of them went back to that 15 to 20-year-old Jisel that never really quite got the opportunity to speak her mind because of self-conscious feelings, because of self-doubt, because of all of the different insecurities that kind of just always were over her head. And I found myself now in my 30s trying to really break free from that and really trying to absorb and accept a lot of those experiences and how I handled them at that time. Whenever I'm asked this question, I always try to tap back into 15-year-old Jisel and how she was feeling at that moment. And when I speak to young women in that age bracket now, I speak to them how I wish I would have been spoken to. And my goal always now as a woman is knowing all the struggles and the experiences. Not all of them have been bad, but just all the experiences I've had, dealing with type 1 diabetes. It's like, how do I shorten the road for the person behind me? How do I make it a little bit easier for them? And I have found that if at that age, someone would have just listened to me and given me the room without any type of judgment to just speak what's on my heart and on my mind, I would have felt less alone.
Yeah.
So I make it a point to do that, to be like, hey, how are you feeling? And anytime I come across someone that's newly diagnosed, I'm like, all right, I get what people are telling you. I get that it's like drinking from a fire hose right now. I get that, you've got like 4 or 5 pump companies asking you and telling you which one's going to be better. I get all of that. But how are you feeling? Like, what are you scared of?
Yeah.
What are you really struggling with right now? What's really holding you back and pushing you down?
Yeah.
And I feel like if I had someone come up to me and ask me those questions at that time, I would have been able to just kind of release a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I realized later in life, I never did release that. And another thing is really try to instill this focus and this kind of train of thought that this isn't going to limit you, and do not ever allow anyone to make you feel lesser than or less capable because of this.
Yeah.
I think that working in an industry now where it's still very male dominated, you tend to kind of belittle yourself unknowingly. And I've learned in the last several years that I'm like, no, I'm just as capable, if not more capable. And just because I choose to wear these medical devices to make the management of this condition easier does not or should not put me in a bubble of, have a person that has like less access or less ability. And I think instilling that confidence from the very beginning and just really allowing them to kind of explore a world where like, okay, what would you think of or what would you dream for yourself if you didn't have type 1 diabetes? Because it really shouldn't be any different.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be any different, even though you do. And I did. I completely X'd out so many things that I kind of had dreamt up for myself out of fear that it wouldn't be accessible to me because I have this that would hold me back. And it was never the case. It was never the case in my education. It was never the case in my relationship, you know. It was never the case in my career. And it's not the case in parenthood and motherhood.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I would focus on, you know, giving them the space and the room to kind of just express it, like transparently, vulnerably, just out in the open, no judgment.
Yeah.
And then turning around and saying, okay, I hear you. And you might not see this picture right now, and you're going to have to travel down this road and you'll get there. But don't ever think that it's going to stop you from doing anything.
Yeah.
And I think that if I had someone just kind of just look me in the face and be like, and I could have gone into it a little bit more like, okay, yeah, I think so. We got this. So that's
Love that. So good.
That's amazing. And you're right. Like, I think you just nailed it there. Even there was stuff with Parker last year where he kind of had his breakdown, and it was like, and for us, you know, I was like, well, let's go look at soccer players that have type 1, professional soccer players. And that was kind of the motivation, because you're right. Like, it's all about, like, you could choose if you want type 1 to hold you back or not, but it's your choice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And don't allow it to hold you back. There's no reason.
Yeah.
right.
Love
So,
it.
cool.
We could talk to you for hours. Thank you
Same.
for coming.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you guys. Thanks for having me. It's been so great. So casual. I love it.
How we do it.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Bye, Palmr fam.
Bye.